go! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my reaction video to all my Club World Cup predictions I made right before the group stage began. Yeah, as you probably already know, a lot of twists happened that we did not expect. But let's see how much I ended up embarrassing myself, how many placements I got right and wrong, and of course we'll do a brief highlight on some things that happened throughout the group stage. Don't forget to leave an early like, it helps me out a lot, and subscribe if you're new. Anyway, let's get into it, starting off with Group A. This is by far the hardest group to call in my opinion. One where I would not be surprised whatsoever if my order is completely flopped around by the time this group stage ends. Now, Porto on paper seem like the favorites to do it, but they're not necessarily the most convincing side right now. I really would not be surprised if they do get upset by one of these teams in their group, but realistically, they will advance the knockouts. But let's look at the rest of the teams in this group, starting off with Inter Miami. Messi's Miami. I mean, if it weren't for him, let's be real, we'd be seeing LA Galaxy in this tournament instead. A few matches they've got outplayed recently in the MLS, but the others, they turn up attacking wise. In the whole month of May, every match they did not lose, they scored more than 3 goals. And that's of course thanks to the GOAT himself partnering up with his ex-Barcelona teammate Luis Suarez. With Busquets and Alaba in the equation as well, Mascherano as their manager, they could be a dangerous team. My only huge issue for them is their defense. I mean, Jordi Alba has an unknown injury return date, and if they are leaking loads of goals from time to time against the other MLS teams, it will not be a good look at a global tournament like this. It is a doable group, but that being said, the other quote-unquote underdogs should not be underestimated. Inter Miami play the opening match against Egyptian side Al Ahly, who are actually one of the most decorated football clubs in the entire world. Their supremacy overtakes Africa for sure, and they have a lot of underrated ballers. Palestinian baller Wessam Abu Ali, who's doing quite well with the national team right now. But let's not forget their captain Mohamed El Shanawi, goalkeeper for the Egyptian national team as well. I would not be surprised if he picks up some man of the match performances. Maybe even heavily frustrating Inter Miami in their opening match. Now we move on to the Brazilian side Palmeiras, who within South America have been posed to be a serious threat. In the Brazilian league, they're 4th, but in a tight title race. But last season, they finished 2nd under Botafogo, and finished 1st in the 2 previous editions, winning so much recent silverware, and it's a huge boost that they are keeping Esteval for the tournament. I actually think Palmeiras have what it takes to qualify for the next round, and I'm going to say they finished 1st place, even over Porto, who I'm putting at 2nd. Again, I would not be surprised if this group is completely flipped, but I'm putting Inter Miami at 3rd place and Al Ahly at 4th. I hate putting any of these teams at 4th, but somebody's got to be there. I even could see Al Ahly making it so close and being one of those admirable teams to get knocked out so soon. So yes, I got 2nd and 3rd place incorrect. I should have believed in the brilliance of Inter Miami more. I just cannot believe Porto failed to get a single win this entire competition, and I would have never expected their only loss to be to Inter Miami. They have been in horrible shape, no doubt about it. But the fact that an MLS club defeated a Champions League winner, yes, I know it was over 20 years ago, but I don't care. This is a historic European club, and their expectations should always be higher. Because this group was definitely not easy, but one where the European side should have made it out alive, minimum. This is also the first ever win an MLS club registered at the Club World Cup. In terms of Inter Miami making it out though, I am not necessarily surprised. I found these 2 comments a lot in my recent short I uploaded, which was replying to my predictions of who would finish last place in each group. And to some extent, I could see why this lad thought Inter Miami were cooked. I mean, their defense prior to this tournament was awful. Don't get me wrong, in the Club World Cup, they were still far from perfect. It's a shame that they blew their 2-0 lead against Palmeiras, but their goalkeeper Ustadi was the man of the match, superior man of the match against Al Ahly. And despite the backline looking sloppy at times, they were strategic and determined enough to make many opponents struggle. I know Messi is going to get all the spotlight for that free kick against Porto to win them that match. And full credit to the GOAT, he just became the only player to register 1,250 direct goal contributions in history. But one of the players I was most impressed by at Inter Miami was Busquets. This guy still got it, dictating the tempo for the build-up play, and it's still very fun to watch. But shout out to Suarez too for his finish against Palmeiras. Hopefully that's not the last time we see him score such a picturesque goal. We know his time is coming to an end with his knees. But imagine if these ex-Barcelona players somehow push through against PSG, their next opponent in the knockouts. I knew Inter Miami had a chance here though, but I did not think that they would finish this group undefeated. Anyway, let's move on to Al Ahly next. Like I said in the video, I could have seen them being one of the teams to get knocked out so soon, but putting off some admirable fights. Well, that's exactly what happened. Despite the 0-0 against Inter Miami and Trezeguet choking that penalty, they were a joy to watch in that match. They failed to score against Palmeiras, but their final match against Porto, 4-4 thriller. and their Palestinian striker Abou Ali scored a hat-trick. Add him to the list of players this season who scored a hat-trick in a match, but in the end it didn't give their team the result they needed. The fight this team showed was admirable, but not enough. Same record as Porto with a bit worse of a goal difference. And Palmeiras, yeah, most of Brazil as a whole absolutely turned up throughout this group stage. I feel like they did not get as much hype compared to the other Brazilian clubs just because they did not defeat a European side yet. They did hold off Porto to a 0-0 draw though, but they still topped the group by the finest of margins. They fought till the end against Inter Miami on that final match day. Massive for them as they avoided PSG in the next round, and now will face a side they're very familiar to already, Botafogo. We'll dive into Brazil as a whole later on while we go through the rest of the predictions, but yeah, them along with the rest of the clubs have caught many Europeans off guard. It's almost like we forgot where so much of this amazing talent comes from. Anyway, like I said in the prediction video, this was one of the toughest groups to call on paper, so I'm not necessarily upset with my results here. Not too bad, 2 out of 4 correct. We move on to Group B with PSG, Seattle Sounders, Atletico Madrid, and Botafogo. Let's get straight into the 4th place pick. The Seattle Sounders are probably cooked. To me, they could have not gotten a tougher group. Coming up against the Champions League winners who set the record of the most one-sided final in history, I don't think Stefan Frei is looking forward to that fixture. If either of the quote-unquote underdogs make it out of this group, it's Botafogo, not Seattle. Since we just went over my last place prediction, I think it's fair to go over first place as well. I'm picking PSG. I think they should comfortably top this group considering their incredible form right now. If that continues, they should do wonders in this tournament. It's crazy how they won their first ever Champions League as soon as all these guys left. But for me, 2nd and 3rd place is a bit tough to decide. I definitely could see it going either way for the remainder clubs, Botafogo and Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid were in some hot form for quite some time, but they fell out of the La Liga title race. And also their new signing Alvarez got cursed by the UCL gods when they faced Madrid. Overall, without a doubt, this season has been unsuccessful with them going trophyless. They're an exceptional team still under Diego Simeone, but regardless, I would not be surprised if we see a bottle job to Botafogo. I would not be surprised whatsoever if they do clinch 2nd place, but I think it's safe to put Botafogo at 3rd. Atletico Madrid will clinch the 2nd place spot. Well, I wasn't surprised, like I said, Botafogo were able to top Atletico. Sounders, of course, I got that one correct. Whoever didn't, I would trust even less than Thogton being able to come up with his own original ideas. And PSG I got correct as well, but only just. But yeah, this has me in the same situation as the last group where I got 1st and 4th correct, but 2nd and 3rd I flopped around. Botafogo had a great chance to top this group as they did defeat PSG head-to-head, which would have put them above them due to a tiebreaker. Because Atletico also shared the same amount of points, goal difference was applied instead. And Atletico were the ones to fall short as they needed to get a 3-0 victory or higher against Botafogo while they only scraped 1 goal. This definitely was quite the failure for Atletico because yes, they did get knocked out in quite unfortunate circumstances, but they took one of the heaviest defeats in the competition, losing 4-0 to PSG. Even the Sounders put off a better fight than them. That heavy loss obviously put them back in the goal difference department, so yeah, they only have themselves to blame. Botafogo in that match against Atletico didn't look to be fully themselves, some sloppy passes against them, and overall looked less composed compared to their victory against PSG. But regardless, the Brazilian club deserve all the credit because they made it out of the group stage in the most difficult group for any Brazilian club on paper. 2 elite European teams met many doubters. Luis Enrique even stated that this was the toughest defensive team they faced, better than some in Europe. And it showed. I mean, all their matches were narrow, including against the Sounders. And although I roasted the Sounders a lot, I do have to give them their credit as well. People made it seem like they were going to get Auckland treatment, but they always put off a fantastic fight and didn't make it easy for a single one of these teams. 3 losses obviously, but I think this club should keep their head high. They obviously did better than many expected them to. As for PSG, I said in my prediction video that these guys were my favorite to win the entire tournament. Definitely not as confident about that pick now as they have shown that they could struggle against teams outside of Europe. But I think this tournament as a whole have proven that the knockouts could definitely have some unpredictable outcomes. No European team is safe here and PSG now know that. But maybe they needed that loss so they know what they need to improve on going forward to the knockouts, learning from their setbacks to make them stronger. But at the end of the day, they did top this group only because Atletico did defeat Botafogo. Fair play to PSG. They should just be aware that they cannot drop their momentum that they had at the beginning of this tournament. Not really torn about getting this group incorrect either, but let's move on to Group C. Group C now with Bayern Munich, Boca Juniors, Auckland City FC, and Benfica. For me, this group is a 3-team race for top 2. I think Auckland City will easily finish 4th. They could be an incredible underdog and I'm rooting for them, but the other clubs in their group have a lot more quality and legacy. It's a really tough group and I see them finishing 4th unless one of these 3 clubs has an absolute howler. Bayern are without a doubt many's favorites to top it. They won the Bundesliga, allowing Harry Kane to win his first ever trophy. but that's about it, so for their standards, it's been an average year. Of course, their squad is one of the deadliest on paper, but many key injuries could haunt them. Their backline has some confirmed to not play and some speculations. Moving on to Benfica, this side had an insane title race against Sporting, only to just miss out on 3 points, but they of course cannot be ignored in this competition. Their attack randomly turns up in absolute fashion, so with Bayern's many defensive issues, they could very much light up against them. So who knows how they'll turn up here, but I would not be surprised if they top this group themselves. Boca Juniors though, I have similar feelings to them as I do to Botafogo. They are that side that I would not be surprised whatsoever to advance from this group, but objectively, they're not the favorites to do it. Cavani is a legendary player, but the truth is he's not getting the same numbers as he did in his prime. They still can rely on another Uruguayan striker though, Merentiel, who's been a decent super sub along with Milton Jimenez. Cavani's not the only older player on this team though. There's Rojo, who's already 35, Herrera, and Luis Advincula. Crazy how some of those names used to play for United. The legendary experience with some upcoming ballers blended in can definitely surprise at this tournament. But I still see them finishing third, with top 2 going to the European clubs. Anyway, I still will go for a slight shock if you even want to call it one. I see Benfica for some reason tearing it up in the group stage, but maybe not making it much further than that. I'm going to say they top this group over Bayern. 100% on this group correct. I think me predicting Benfica to finish first place makes this prediction video elite no matter what else happens. Pretty sure nearly everyone went for Bayern to top it, especially after they cooked Auckland City 10-0 in their first match. They look destined to take this group on by storm. But Benfica did defeat them head-to-head on the final day. And this is actually Benfica's first ever win against the German Giants in their entire history, and they faced a total of 14 times, I think. Company chose to rest some key players at the wrong time, as Bayern's path to the final is looking much more difficult now. Sure, they did avoid Chelsea in the round of 16, but as we all know, you should not rule out the Brazilian clubs, and they take on Flamengo next. But okay, let's say they do pull off the result and defeat Flamengo. Then they might have to come up against PSG in the quarters. Bayern had so many wasteful chances in that match against Benfica. It was almost like it was a competition to see who would get the worst miss. But hey, just for speaking the truth, the Bayern hate allegations will only continue. I'm shocked myself I got this right after Bayern were looking too good, like I saw with that win against Auckland City, defeating them 10-0. Even though this semi-professional club had some of the heaviest defeats in the competition, they deserve all the flowers. Yes, in the first 2 match days, they conceded 16 goals. But in the final one, they picked up a draw and even scored against Boca Juniors. Think about it, this squad is filled with players that have 9-to-5 jobs, having to ask for time off to play in this tournament. Their goalkeeper, for example, works at a pharmaceutical warehouse. And the goal scorer against Boca Juniors to keep it level is an elementary school teacher. Damn, his students are gonna think he's a legend. Meanwhile, yes, he's not his prime anymore, but a striker with an elite resume, Edison Cavani, couldn't do anything against these semi-professionals. He was still recovering from injury still, but Boca just kept knocking this match and couldn't get any more goals. But even if Boca did pull off some kind of comfortable win, they would have not advanced regardless and still finished third, as Benfica did defeat Bayern. I think the Argentinian club put South America to shame, as there was so much hype for them at the beginning of the tournament. Anyway, with how Auckland held off against Boca Juniors, maybe they could get a result against United as well. But yeah, shout out to the Kiwi club for standing their ground. Despite the heavy defeats earlier, they did not give up. We all thought that this would be the worst club at the tournament itself, but they won't be now, because they did not get 3-for-3 losses like some of the other clubs. In fact, they only got 1 less point than Boca Juniors, which is mad. I'm also shocked about it, as Boca did put off good fights earlier on, a 2-2 draw against Benfica, and only losing to Bayern 2-1. But yeah, no denying, even going into this tournament, the club are not in the best shape right now. I cannot believe that out of all the groups so far, this is the one I got 100% correct. But it will not be the same going forward to Group D. Group D now, Flamengo, Esperança de Tunis, Chelsea, and LAFC. LAFC is the most recent club to make it into this tournament after beating Club America in a playoff round 2-1. Anyway, this team will be incredible to watch at the tournament. 2 French veterans like Giroud and Lloris. Bowanger, the winning goal scorer against Club America, is one of Gabon's standout players. And out of the MLS clubs in this competition, I could see LAFC having more impressive performances. Obviously, their biggest obstacle on paper is Chelsea. A very back and forth season for Chelsea, though, as many thought that they could be stronger under Maresca. But too many random dips in form had fans lose confidence. Of course, hope was restored at the end, qualifying for Champions League football by getting 4th in the Premier League and winning the Conference League final against Real Betis 4-1. Yeah, sorry guys, no upset for me. I think Chelsea are the favorites to top this group, but the rest is definitely up for debate. Flamengo could definitely put off a good fight against the Blues. And honestly, the Brazilian clubs in this tournament, I feel like outside of Europe, have the best chance to excel out of any of the other regions. Flamengo are probably one of the most informed teams in the continent right now, as although it's extremely tight, they are in fact leading the title race. They've also got the most dominant goal difference out of any of the clubs in the league. Just a proper quality side that I would not be surprised to see upset Chelsea, but I do think they'll finish second at the end. And yes, sorry LAFC, I think they can put off a fight, but I think in this tournament, Brazilian football will really be shown how beautiful it truly is, and they will finish third place. I think they'll fall short to Flamengo, and Esperança de Tunis, who I didn't even touch on yet, is finishing fourth. Okay, I got the teams advancing in the eliminated spot on, but the order was completely off. Flamengo topped the group after a dominant display against Chelsea, and LAFC could not defeat the Tunisian club head-to-head. Esperança Sportive de Tunis played some great attacking football in that match though. They even caught some of their supporters off guard, but unfortunately they could not hold their own against the Blues. Chelsea redeemed themselves to take second place, and I think they'll be happy to face Benfica instead of Bayern. It does not mean they should underestimate them though, of course. But Flamengo genuinely played some of the best football against the Premier League side. Way more organized, composed, the players as a unit, everyone knew where each other was at all times. Stylish football as well from the likes of Gonzalo Plata, and Felipe Luis is living the dream coaching this club. They have a very tough task next though to face Bayern. Not the best reward after topping your group convincingly, but there is no reason why they should not believe in themselves. Them or Botafogo out of the Brazilian clubs impressed me the most in this competition, but the way Flamengo defeated Chelsea, I might have to say that they have been the most impressive Brazilian side so far in this competition. I know they drew with LAFC at the end, but with the circumstances of them already securing first, I feel like they did not really give it their all in that match. Anyway, 0 for 4 for going in terms of placement in this group. Quite the shame, but we move on. Group B now, we have Inter, River Plate, Urawa Red Diamonds, and Monterrey. Very underrated group in my opinion. Inter just made it to a Champions League final, but in all honesty, they couldn't have ended their season in more heartbreak. Like I said, losing that final 5-0, the most one-sided final in Champions League history, along with missing out on the Serie A title to Napoli. They just gifted PSG and Manchester City their first Champions League titles, but they're giving to the rich, so you cannot even call them Robin Hood. Anyway, too many question marks at Inter right now, as Inzaghi has left the club to join another club at this tournament, Al Hilal. That's a huge blow for Inter, as despite those falls at the end of the season, he was utilizing a lot of their players to perfection. So with all things considered, I'm still going to favor them to top this group, but I don't know how much longer they'll be able to last in the knockouts. The rest though, wow, River Plate, of course they're a gem in this competition. Second in the group currently in the Argentina Primera División, and we saw so many incredible players recently come out of this club. Of course, they always seem to have some wonder kid emerging here. Many players sold for profit, and the name going into the Club World Cup now is Franco Mastantuono. Obviously, this is one of the most historical clubs in Argentina, and depending on how they do in this group stage, I wouldn't be surprised if they have some kind of deep run in the knockouts as well. That's assuming they make it out of the group though, as we obviously cannot rule out the other teams, Monterrey or Urawa Red Diamonds. Monterrey will have the legend Sergio Ramos in the back line, ex-Sevilla star Lucas Ocampos on the wing, ex-Betis star Canales, Jesus Corona who saw his heights at Porto. These names alone definitely could be enough to sneak through to second place in this group. They've fallen a bit in form this season, but are still a solid competitor. If any Mexican club is going to have a good shout in this tournament for me, it's these guys. And for Urawa Red Diamonds, they won the AFC Champions League back in 2022 to get them to be in this tournament, but since then have fallen quite a bit. 13th place last season in the J1 League, have improved a bit since, but still not convincing enough. They can be fueled in this tournament, but I don't see it, unfortunately. 4th place for me. But 2nd and 3rd, I think is very tough to call. I know most people are going to back River Plate, and I would love to be the one to say Monterrey could do it instead. But I got to be honest in my predictions, of course. River Plate definitely look more organized and composed right now. To me, they are the favorites to get 2nd place in this group. Monterrey get 3rd. I should have backed Monterrey. I should have backed them. I actually thought they had a chance in this group, a very solid one, and they were in a very comfortable position on that final match day. As long as they defeated Urawa Red Diamonds, which they did very convincingly, they were essentially through. They even could have topped the group at one point. But it seems like River Plate were celebrating a bit too hard with Boca's failures, as they had to face Inter next and crashed out there. Losing their head, to be honest, getting 2 red cards in that match. We even had Acuna trying to meet with Dumfries in the tunnel after the match. Both the Argentinian clubs knocked out in the group stage, but River Plate were obviously much closer than Boca Juniors, at least grabbing a win. All 3 clubs to grab points in this group were able to defeat last place Urawa Red Diamonds. But apart from that, it was all really cagey against one another. Inter, yes, they topped this group as most people expected, doing it undefeated as well. I know they're still trying to build themselves after Inzaghi's departure, but honestly, so far, I have not been so impressed with them. Drawing with Monterrey, barely beating Urawa Red Diamonds, doing it against River Plate, obviously, but all the goals they did score were after the first red card. I'm not sure how it will go for Inter later on. They are taking Fluminense next, and they have proven to be a very composed defensive side. So if Inter are already struggling to score goals against these other clubs they faced so far, this match could easily be a nightmare for them in the round of 16. Yes, I got Monterrey wrong, but I'm so happy for them that they pushed through. Going undefeated themselves, they only picked up their first win on the final match day against Urawa Red Diamonds, but it was a massive one and it's all they needed. Holding off the quote-unquote favorites to a draw earlier on, and them having to face Dortmund next, honestly, I would not be surprised if we see an upset there as well. Honestly, they do have an incredible squad. I was kind of surprised they weren't able to take advantage of that in Liga MX, but at the Club World Cup, they're giving it their all, and it's showing. I am mad at myself for not believing in the Mexican side. I decided to believe in another quote-unquote underdog in the next group instead. Moving on to Group F, we've got Dortmund, Fluminense, Mamelodi Sundowns, and Ulsan HD. I've been praising the Brazilian clubs, but Fluminense in my last video I heavily doubted. I said Mamelodi Sundowns would advance to the knockouts with Dortmund. Now back then, Fluminense were going through some dark times, only just avoiding relegation. I know the Brazilian league often has big clubs fall off and then bounce back well, but another huge reason why I didn't back Fluminense in the past was because Mamelodi Sundowns are looking incredible. They absolutely cruised through the PSL this season, and many of their players have already proved themselves in the international stage. That's because many of them play for the South African national team, who are excelling wonderfully right now. Yeah, Sundowns I think have every reason to believe. Of course, it's not going to be easy, but I do think that they are the favorites amongst these quote-unquote underdogs to advance the knockouts. It's a doable group, and I definitely think they could break down Ulsan, who have been in the worst form amongst all these teams in this group. They have some hidden gems like Eric Farias, who's gotten a decent amount of goals in the Korean League, but for me, they're getting fourth, and Dortmund should easily get first. Dortmund's comeback this season has been nothing short but sensational to qualify for Champions League football, after being so far down in the Bundesliga table as well. Niko Kovac, despite the criticism, ended up being the perfect fit, as he's already had so much experience in the Bundesliga and too many incredible players. The unit and spirit Dortmund brings makes me think they should easily make it to the knockouts. For second and third, of course I'm torn, but I'm still gonna go with my initial pick with Sundowns to advance to the knockouts. South African football is growing, and I think they'll be able to show it here. I'm sorry, I know I'm repping the Fluminense kit, but I still gotta back the Mamelodi Sundowns. I should have stuck with the kit I was repping, but you know what? My prediction genuinely could have happened. Mamelodi Sundowns were actually one of the most impressive sides at the Club World Cup. The football they played was beautiful. They scored 3 goals against Borussia Dortmund and still lost in that match. That was their only loss. They defeated Ulsan HD and just picked up a draw to Fluminense. Genuinely toughest way to go out for Sundowns. They played very well against Fluminense, just could not connect the dots to get at least a goal, which is all they needed in that match to actually get second place. Fluminense, shout out to them. They finished this group undefeated, but 2 of their results were 0-0. All their goals came in their comeback against Ulsan, and that was also the only match where they conceded any. And in terms of Dortmund, yes, they did top the group undefeated, but it's similar to Inter. Not the most convincing football, honestly. At the end of the day, although I think Sundowns played some very impressive football, they also made some very clumsy mistakes against Dortmund. Some of the goals Dortmund scored just shouldn't have happened in the first place and were clumsy errors. So I do think the German club were a tad bit lucky to grab 3 points in that fixture. They couldn't score against Fluminense like we talked about, and they barely defeated Ulsan HD. I feel very bad for the Sundowns actually, and bad for South African football as a whole. Despite those errors against Dortmund, they should be very proud of this club for proving that they can really go toe-to-toe with the rest of the world. It was so close to happening. I picked the wrong underdog to push through. Should have been Monterrey. I backed the Sundowns instead. Unfortunately, no African club will make it to the knockouts. I thought Sundowns were the ones to have the best chance. And you know what? They were the closest, but no result. Football can sometimes be very heartbreaking. At the end, Fluminense did deserve it. They made less errors, and a good defense wins you games. Shout out to Thiago Silva for still balling out at his age as well. Anyway, so far, Group C is still the only group I got 100% correct. Let's see if that changes going forward. Group G now with Al Ain, Juventus, Manchester City, and Wydad Casablanca. This one, there are definitely clear favorites, and I cannot see many upsets. Al Ain and Wydad Casablanca, if they pull through, would be a miracle. So respectfully, these 2 are finishing 3rd and 4th. I say Wydad just edge Al Ain though for the 3rd place spot. And for me, it's likely we'll see Manchester City top this group and Juventus get 2nd. This one easily could have been 4 for 4 if it weren't for that quote-unquote useless matchup for that 3rd place spot. Both sides were already eliminated, and Wydad blew their 1-0 lead to Al Ain. The UAE club had a way worse goal difference, so I thought my prediction was about to come true. But instead, the Moroccan club was the worst one in this group and is now on the list for clubs to get 3 for 3 losses. I mean, what a shame. At least I got the 1st and 2nd placement correct. Third and fourth obviously don't matter nearly as much, but it was a group I could have easily got 4 for 4 on. Shout out to Manchester City though, they're the only club at the Club World Cup to get 3 for 3 wins in the group stage. Juventus looked to have some of the most impressive records so far, annihilating the other teams they faced. But once they took on City, they were on the receiving end. And it's a huge loss for Juventus because now they're in a tougher path and will have to face Real Madrid most likely in the round of 16. I really feel like there's not much to say on this one because the UEFA clubs definitely outclassed the other teams. All the expected stuff happened, but now with Manchester City's perfect record in the group stage, are they considered now one of the ultimate favorites for the Club World Cup? Everyone started to write them off a bit because of their disappointing season for their standards. But maybe they're back now. As for Juventus, despite that heavy blow to City, definitely some standouts in the other matches. Kenan Yildiz absolutely balled out. As for City, it's nice to see Phil Foden return to form. And Sylvinho's strike against Juventus was next level. And the final group we're looking at with Real Madrid, Al Hilal, RB Salzburg, and Pachuca. Like I said earlier, Monterrey are the only Mexican side I do see having a decent run in this competition, so I'm going to put Pachuca already at 4th place. 8th place in Liga MX right now. They've been on a decline since winning the league in 2022, as they failed to get top 4 since. A few standout players, of course. They have solid attackers like the Moroccan winger Idrissi, Kennedy at striker, even Solomon Rondon, who completely tore it up in the Copa America last year, also taking place in the USA. But their group is simply too tough, I'd say. 2 European clubs, 1 Saudi club with loads of money, who, like I mentioned earlier, just took Inter's manager Inzaghi. He could end up being the club version of Mancini, if you know what I mean. But this guy is so tactically adaptable to whatever side he is given. They'll need his guidance and leadership though, as they just lost the Saudi Pro League to Al Ittihad when the season prior they won the league undefeated with 96 points. Red Bull Salzburg also just missed out on winning their domestic league, finishing 2nd this season. They have always been a young, energetic team filled with talent and could very much go toe-to-toe with Al Hilal. The one thing that sucks though is their main striker Konate has a crucial ligament tear and is unsure whether he'll play in the tournament or not. I had more faith in them to do better in the Champions League, but I was clearly wrong, and I think they'll be able to pull off a better fight here, but still fall short in the end. I'm saying they get 3rd place. Al Hilal clinched 2nd, with of course only being behind Real Madrid. Yeah, I'm sorry for always favoring the European teams, but out of them all, you have to favor Los Blancos to top this group. They are the most successful team in the Champions League, and although they ultimately did not have the greatest season for their standards, they will always remain as one of the favorites in any cup competition. And would you look at that, we finished off the video strong, getting 2 out of 8 groups correct only. Real Madrid and Al Hilal both finishing the group undefeated. Salzburg were looking okay until they faced Los Blancos, and Pachuca got totally shut down with 3 for 3 losses. Real Madrid were definitely looking a bit shaky at first, getting a draw with Al Hilal, but we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. They had some key players missing. It was Xabi Alonso's first match in charge. It was Trent's debut, which did not go well, but the squad as a whole looks like they're very much improving and building momentum. Their results only got more and more convincing. They had a scare against Pachuca conceding that red card, but they pushed through regardless. I still think we got to consider Real Madrid as one of the favorites to win this tournament. Definitely not too many shockers in this group whatsoever, so let's move forward to my final tally, I guess. Like I said, only 2 out of 8 groups 100% correct. In terms of my last place picks, I got 6 out of 8 correct. And in terms of the teams I got correct to advance to the knockouts, not in terms of their actual placement, just predicting if they'd actually land 1st or 2nd, I got 12 out of 16 correct. Definitely could have been better. I would have liked to get at least 14 out of 16. But as always, let me know how you guys did in the comments below. Thank you all for making it to the end of this video. If you did enjoy, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll do my best to release a round of 16 prediction video, hopefully on the same day I upload this as well, but it might take me some time to edit, of course. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'll see you all very soon. Take care. La con noche.